thank you all for coming. This is a special Q&A call for those of you that completed the podcast listener survey that we sent out in about November, I think, of 2020. I have been doing the podcast, the Turn Autism Around podcast, since January of 2019. So we're coming up on our 2-year anniversary of the podcast. We have over 350,000 downloads. We just did our 100th podcast episode. The Turn Autism Around podcast, the survey asked you how many parents, how many professionals, but the podcast listener survey showed me that actually about 70% of you are caregivers, parents, grandparents, caregivers, 22% professionals that completed the survey, and 9% were both parent and professional. But only 160 people completed the survey, and those people tended to answer the email, click on the link. And so those people are more likely not to have subscribed to Apple Podcasts or Spotify and listen only. They actually watch it. A lot of you watch it on the website, marybarbera.com/podcast. I do a mixture of interviews and solo shows. This year I did a lot more interviews and solo shows. 92% of you liked both. 4% preferred the solo shows and 4% preferred the interviews. So actually it gives me more flexibility to be able to do both. And so that's what we're going with. That seems to work out well. And really, the age group was surprising. Out of the people that completed the survey, 18% had kids or clients under 3, 46% 3 to 5 years old. So most of you have kids 5 and under. And then 6 to 12-year-olds, that was 29%. Teens was only 5%, and adults with autism was only 2%. So we really struggle with that, because of my new book, we're going in that direction where we're doing more and more about early detection and treatment and empowering parents to become the captain of the ship, because the best time to treat autism or signs of autism is very early on. But the good news is we can use all of these same techniques and same procedures with older kids who have more significant delays. And then we asked what your favorite episodes were. And Spencer, my typically developing son, who is turning 23 2 days after Christmas, his episode, which was 85, was by far the favorite. So when I say episode 85, that's marybarbera.com/85. I give out, that's how I pick my top 10, is if I'm giving out. So Spencer's is 85. The next best favorite podcast episode was Keith Williams on feeding, which was great. And that was episode number 95. Michelle C., whose daughter Elena is featured in chapter 8 of my new book, as well as chapter 13 with desensitization to the bathtub. She is episode 78, Michelle C. Kelsey was also a favorite. She's episode number 3. Kelsey is our community manager within both my online courses. And then there were a few others, but those were basically the top 4 or 5. Okay, now first, before we take questions, I would like to ask if anybody wants to come on and just tell me their favorite episode, or tell me some aha moment that you had that really impacted from the podcast. So if anybody wants to do that, you can ask to unmute, or you can unmute yourself.
Mary, I'm going to bring Jackie has a question.
Okay, cool.
Jackie, you're unmuted. Go ahead.
And one of my questions was your thoughts on RBTs, because I've had a really great BCBA, and I actually knew her before I had kids. And so she was such a great BCBA, but I found that you don't really see the BCBA too often. It's the RBT that you see every day. And the RBTs that I've experienced, they were brand new to ABA. I think Jeremiah who's my son. He might have been one of their first clients. I've had 2 different ones that I've worked with. And it was like they just came out of their training program, their 2-week or 3-week training program. So the energy wasn't there, versus the BCBA. They were just very inconsistent with scheduling. So it's been a challenge. And of course, with COVID, it's just been kind of hard,
Yeah.
you really
Definitely.
can't
So
really.
where do you live, Jackie?
Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Okay. So if I were Jackie and I was trying to find a quote unquote good BCBA RBT agency that used something similar to my approach, which is really hard and challenging. So I have a couple resources. I have a video blog that I did called something like Home versus School ABA, and how to know if you're getting, how to observe a placement like a classroom, or how to call up on the telephone and figure out if they're doing anything similar to what you're learning within my podcast, within my online courses. And we're having some challenges. Most people are having challenges. But the first thing I would do if I were in Virginia Beach and I was in a situation where I was kind of looking for something that would be compatible with what I am teaching, is I would search ABA, autism, even if your child doesn't have a diagnosis, but especially if they do, ABA, autism, verbal behavior, BB-MAP, Virginia Beach, Virginia. And I would search all of that in the search bar. And now a couple at the top might be sponsored and they might be missing
Right.
some BB-MAP, verbal behavior. Then I would kind of go down and I would look at, if you can find a couple agencies, 3 agencies, look at their websites, see if they mention verbal behavior, see if they mention the BB-MAP, see if they mention RBTs. Now, the RBTs, in my opinion, like my online courses especially show you specifically what you as the mom should be doing. So I would share with the RBT and the BCBA, like, this is what we're doing. Like, we're having a shoebox. Like I have one person who, she started the course. She got her grandson to start saying apple. He was happy. He was running to the table. They come to the front of the line with an ABA agency, and the ABA agency is like, get ready for a lot of crying, a lot of upset. We're going to make him work at the table. We're going to take him in his bedroom. You're not going to see him for 2 hours. It's like, that's going to undo everything you just learned.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if in my online course, in my book, I talk about like getting language samples and getting baseline videos and doing the 1-page assessment and the 1-page plan. Any BCBA, whether they have BB-MAP, verbal behavior on their website, should be open to, like, if I went into a client's house and they said, he just went from 2 words to 100 words in an hour in the 60-day program I'm taking, I don't care what they would call it. I'd be like, let me see it. Let me see what you're doing. I mean, I would just be open to, let me see exactly what you're doing. If you have a BCBA that's like, well, that's too bad, we're going to do it our way and there's going to be crying, then that's not the Turn Autism Around approach. The Turn Autism Around approach is child friendly. It's empowering the parent to be the captain of the ship, to make sure that there's a lot of pairing going on, that we progress systematically, we make everything fun, there's as little crying as possible, and that we work together collaboratively. So I wouldn't expect an RBT to come to my house with any skill. I would just expect them to be like decent with kids and like decent with me. And then and you might be thinking, well, I don't have time to train this person. Like, isn't the BCBA supposed to train them and they're supposed to be ready after this training? It's just not going to work. Like, that's not reality. You're going to have an entry level person, and hopefully you can pair with that person quickly, show her the shoebox, get the transfer, like not to sit down with to sit down with your child, with the RBT, kind of work together in a threesome, transfer all the pairing you have to her as quickly as possible, and then get out of the room. But it may take days, it may take actually weeks. You know, and the more you can kind of transfer that so that you don't have, you know, your insurance is paying and you want to be able to help your other kids and stuff. But so that would be my thing is don't expect much out of the RBT except for they show up and they're decent and they are open to your feedback.
Okay. Yeah, I must have, I'm still new, so I just didn't have the right perception of what.
Yeah,
Well,
no, it's 100%
so,
common. I hear it all the time. And yeah. And I know Ria is here, and she joined my course, and she happened to find a BCBA who I had mentored, and she was kind of one of my coaches, and she's still a Facebook advisor, and she happens to be 10 minutes away. And
oh,
you
wow.
know, that's great. I did do some training in Virginia Beach, and there are people down there that that know what they're doing. So you already have half the battle. You have a BCBA. So talk to her. You know, the BCBA can take my courses, the RBT can listen to a podcast, or you can send them to the ABA school versus home, and getting everybody on the same page. Lots of resources.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you. And then just one more thing. When it comes to public school, how would you, at this age, at a preschool age, would you combine public school, the preschool program with an ABA as well? ABA services and the special education public schooling?
And how old's your child? 3?
He's 3.
Yeah. And that is kind of that blog of school versus home ABA. I don't care what you call it. If this school is 3 kids to every 1 adult, if there's a lot of arts and crafts and group responding and your child isn't at that level and you don't have echoic control, imitation, all the things you need for the child to learn in a group, then it might be a waste of time.
Okay.
But that's an individual, and it also may be an individual decision, you know, like if you work, or if, you know, my son did go to a typical preschool for 4 hours a day, 4 hours 2 hours twice a week, 4 hours total, you know, when he was little. So that isn't like a clear cut, yes, combine it, or no, stay away. That depends on the child, their skills, what is offered. Is it positive? Is the child happily going there? Is it a good break? Is it a pain? Are they progressing? Are they working on the same goals that the ABA accompanying, or are they going to be working on different goals like eye contact and things that I don't recommend?
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, honestly, right now they were in face and now they're back to virtual, and who knows when they'll be back in face. So it might be a little inconsistent right now, a little too inconsistent for him.
Yeah. Swatina, who had a lot of questions, she said in the beginning.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll try to generalize it because I know you said it's not make it specific, but I came up with the specific questions to my daughter. But
Okay.
but just to give you a background, again, I did not take any of the online courses, but my daughter's SLP, speech language pathologist, she gave me link to your website, but we got autism diagnosis when she was 3.5. Prior to that, we had infant toddler services from our county come in like 1 hour per week, just to improve her eye contact, because there was lack of eye contact, lack of response when we called her name around that age. So from 2.5 to 3, we had those services come. They came home and they helped us with tools and tips. And then she had started attending preschool. The school district provided like speech and OD services, certain amount of hours per week. And we were on the wait list, and we got the diagnosis at 3.5. And a month later, we found ABA services. We found a center that provided in-home and at center ABA therapy. ABA kind of proved to be the most effective. We could see the difference. I mean, the rate of progress was faster compared to like speech therapy here and there, you know. And then 5 months later, we also had epilepsy diagnosis. She had seizures and she's been on seizure medication for over a year now. But she came a long way. She can request and man in sentences like, can I have a cookie, please? Still, pronouns is a problem. Pronouns and prepositions is one of the goals that we are working. My BCBA kind of has like a 1 to 2 hour telehealth sessions with me. She gives me tips and techniques. And I also go to your website, and I was the one who looked at one of your videos popped up on my inbox, like you talked about pronouns, and it was like the timing was right. So I just sent it to my BCBA, and so what do you suggest? What are the effective ways to teach pronouns and prepositions? That's one of my questions.
Okay, so again, the 4 steps are assessment, planning, teaching, and evaluating. So again, and this is a common thing. Parents just really want to know, and professionals, like how to teach this. My suggestion would be to go back to the 1-page assessment, the 1-page plan, which you can get marybarbera.com/join will get you the 3-step guide with those 2 forms in it at this point. It's also going to be part of my book and my book launch and all that stuff. So, but for right now, you can get the 1-page assessment and plan. One of the things that I would suggest is not thinking your daughter is higher functioning than she is. So can I have a cookie, please? It involves carrier phrases, which I avoid. It involves manners, which I avoid. And you can look at anytime you say, okay, I just so happened upon this pronoun video blog. But everybody here is probably wondering, well, where's the pronoun video blog? You just type Mary Autism pronouns and you will get the video blog. You do the same thing, and I would do that for Mary Autism carrier phrases, Mary Autism prepositions, Mary Autism manners. So I have actually quite a few soapboxes that I will get on. And it's not saying your BCBA is bad, they need to be fired, your SLP doesn't know what she's doing. This is the way 99% of kids with autism are taught. They are taught rotely. They are scaffolded into sentences before they have pivotal phrases. And I would highly recommend that you consider taking the verbal behavior bundle of courses where you're going to be shown exactly what to do to teach pronouns, when to teach prepositions, how to teach yes, no responding. It's very complicated. Very few people in the world know how to do it. And I feel like Lucas, my son, has been an intermediate learner his whole life. I've worked with hundreds of kids and I've used my procedures to help them learn these things. So a couple pieces of advice is search for those video blogs, consider joining the verbal behavior bundle, and sentences are overrated. I have another video blog, what's the problem with Timmy talking in 4-word utterances? And you can search for that video blog as well. And I think it will really help you kind of understand that it's not all about sentences. And sometimes when sentences, like if a child, for instance, says water, and you say it like a big boy or girl, or use your sentences, and they say, I want water, please. You just basically punished a spontaneous man and the child becomes more prompt dependent on adults to speak. And so we really want to reinforce the spontaneous man's, whatever they sound or look like.
Okay. Oh, thank you. So on those same lines, we started teaching her introverbals. Like one of thing is yes, no questions. And it took me a few months and she's there yet. She's there now where she's starting to correct herself and answer those. And then one of the other goals we put on for her is WH questions. And this is where my BCBA, one of her goals was like, we started teaching her concept of community workers, like, right, firefighters. Who puts out fires? Firefighter. So we kind of use that errorless teaching. But I also purchased your book, and in that you talk about not to teach that way. So what are your, again, I want to listen from you. How do you approach the WH questions? And she's at like level 3 now on VB Map. Again, she's not completed level 2. Like I said, she talks in sentences, she can request. So we thought, okay, we could start introverbals for her.
Yeah, that's another thing is in addition to the assessment being the step 1,
Right.
that is not just that 1-page assessment. That is also potentially a VB map. It is also the intraverbal subtest. Search Mary Autism intraverbals and you will find a video blog with the subtest. It's also,
Yeah, I did that actually.
okay,
That
but
had different groups, right?
yeah.
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 So
So
she passed the group 1 and group 2, but she lost on group 3.
yeah, so it's an indication that this level 2 and 3 of the VB map is highly complicated, and it's not just moving down to how do I teach that? How do I teach that is you're gonna be chasing your tail. It's like a whack-a-mole. And you and or your BCBA really needs to join the verbal behavior bundle course. Otherwise, it's impossible for me to kind of give advice about how to teach this or that, because you can see it's all related and it's all messy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It is complicated.
Yeah.
I mean, I can,
very
once it gets
complicated.
to that
Yeah,
level.
but we know
Yeah.
what to do. It's just a little bit more complicated than even in my new book, Turn Autism Around, chapter 9, which is on advanced talking. It's basically to avoid 3 big mistakes, and that is length of utterance, of building phrases before the child's ready, teaching too high, and I forget what the third mistake is, but it's very, very complicated.
Okay.
And it's very important that you learn to teach the correct way, and you and the SLP and the BCBA and everybody learns to teach the right way, because otherwise the child just makes error after error and it becomes frustrating. And also not to just focus on teaching talking, but following directions, teach self-care, teach leisure skills, teach social skills, teach, if not fully potty trained, sleeping in their own bed, picky eater. These kids tend to scripting, stimming. Now we've got all of those issues potentially as well.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
It's Rhea.
Yep.
So by the way, I want to thank you. As Brenda was saying, it's a lifeline, and it was for me. I've been in the course for a year, and it really helped my son. He's 4 now, but he was diagnosed before he turned 3, like Lucas was. And it was pretty much, I was a little biased when I found it because you were a nurse, and I said, I trust her. So, and I'm a nurse too, so I didn't think twice. So there's a lot of been progress. So I encourage every parent here who's not in the course to take it. It really is a lot of knowledge, and it is empowering to know that even if everything shuts down, that you know something and you can do something. It really is. And I think I hit the jackpot when I found Kristen Poyer, and I hope she doesn't mind me mentioning her name, but she did. It was almost like a jackpot. if there's something like that in autism or ABA.
Well,
It's 10
Kristen,
minutes away.
Kristen had seen me live. She'd read my book. She'd seen me live a few times. And then when I started my course, she started right from the very beginning. And then Kristen did a podcast episode with me too. And then when Rhea was looking for somebody in Maryland, I was like, oh, I think Kristen might be nearby. And so they got hooked up. So
Yeah, we have.
Rhea took the course, but then she also found a BCBA who is very much in line with my teaching. And so, we need to create more of these dyads of a parent and a professional both being in sync with my approach. And I think we're going to see a lot more gains.
Yeah, it really works. I mean, we did speech therapy for months and they couldn't make my son sit down for 30 seconds. And again, their goal is to make him sit down for 1 minute. And the pairing was bad. And it's just not, I would say 4 months of no improvement. And I did your course, and in 4 weeks, he's talking and I was writing more, and I did the assessment and he was writing 5 words. He was saying 5 words, and then I tried it for 4 weeks and he was saying over 100. And then a year into ABA and we're VB-MAP level 2 in months. It's amazing. So I encourage parents, and I want to thank you for that. We're actually trying to do IEP, but I think you answered one of the mom's question, and I think that's the answer I'm looking for the IEP part.
What's your question?
About virtual IEP? I will have an IEP meeting soon, and actually in 2 days, my birthday, we're doing IEP meeting.
Happy
2
birthday.
days before Christmas. So we're gonna try to schedule talk about IEP, about a 4-year-old or turning 4, virtual. And I think you said about it's pretty much the same with virtual, non-virtual. So,
yeah, your goals and your assessment, your plan, your goals should be the same, regardless of what can happen to treat it. And so the assessment and the goals should really be the same. And there's a lot of people doing different things with special education students. A lot of schools are now funding home programs, or like Brenda was saying, where she normally wouldn't have done behavioral support in the summer, but that's done. So don't think like, oh, my typically developing kids are going full virtual, and so this is what we get. Because especially if you are in the United States, the free appropriate public education requirements do not change with COVID. And your child is only going to be 4 once, so we have to get on it and we have to give them the best chance of success. And so I would just really encourage everybody to start back with the assessment. And even if you have a VB-MAP and everything, if I were going into an IEP meeting, I would redo that 1-page assessment and make sure that the plan and the IEP goals really flow from that. There's also, if you have a VB-MAP done, there are IEP goals that go with the VB-MAP as well. So I would take a look at those. And don't forget, if your child has problem behaviors, a lot of people don't know this, but problem behavior reduction goals can and should be in the IEP. So should social goals or leisure goals. Like, it doesn't have to be academic and language only. So in my son's IEP and my clients' IEPs where I was supporting them, they would have a goal such as the child will have under 20% of the intervals on partial interval will have minor problem behaviors, and major problem behaviors will be at or near 0. And that was our goal, and which would then require them to have one-to-one support, potentially have them be able to fill out data sheets every 15 minutes, having them engage with the child, provide dense reinforcement. So don't forget about behavior reduction goals going into the IEP as well. Okay.
Thank you.
How about
Mary, We have a question from Alejandro from the beginning. He had asked a question, so if he wants to come on
Okay.
and
Yeah.
answer that.
Hi, do you see me?
Yep, I can see you.
All right, greetings from Costa Rica.
Cool.
My name is Alejandro. I'm the parent of a 3 years old with autism. He's about to be 4. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for all the opportunity that you have with your podcast and these live Q&A questions.
Yeah.
My question is that currently he received 1 hour of ABA. So we don't have insurance here for that. So you have to pay it from your pocket. So we have it 1 hour. It's been really good. You know, he can like have some progress, you know, little by little. But he's not speaking, you know, he's not talking. So my question is, compared with the therapy for language, which one is better? You know, if you have to pay for one, which one will be? You know, if you continue with the road with ABA, or you know, maybe change it, or you know, combine it with both. Thank you.
I would say I would learn to fish myself as the parent. And so the best way to do that with a 3, almost 4-year-old is to join our toddler course and to learn how to put together a program yourself and then consult with somebody who knows my approach to help you get to the next level. I think that would be the best investment you could make, especially given the fact that insurance does not cover. In the meantime, if that is not possible, and if you're out there and you're thinking, well, I don't even know what it's about or how to get you to, you could go to marybarbera.com/workshop, attend a free workshop based on whether you're a parent of a younger child, parent of an older child, or a professional. If you're like Swatina and your child has like BB-MAP level 2, level 3 skills, I would go into the older child docket where you would learn how to program that high. If like your son, Alexandra, isn't speaking yet and is 3 or 4, the toddler preschooler course is perfect.
Right.
There you will learn how to put all of these things together. And also my new book is going to be perfect for you. But that's not going to be out until the end of March. And in that time, you could see, like Ria did, see major, major transformation. But in the course, we also teach you how to know what you need. Like maybe you just need to hire a mommy's helper or a babysitter to come in, or a college student or a church volunteer or a grandparent to come in to engage your child in the fun, easy activities, which we go over in the course. And maybe it doesn't need to be a high price specialist. Maybe more hours with somebody you can train yourself is going to be beneficial. Like in my situation, I had au pairs live with me for multiple years as my kids were young, because Lucas needed constant supervision and he needed ABA and he needed somebody 18 years or older to be here to sign their paperwork. And, you know, and you might say, well, yeah, I don't have, you know, time or money for, I don't have money for that. Well, you know, I was able to get a PhD, become a behavior analyst, work as a behavior analyst, write a book. Like if you can do that with an au pair that in the end really doesn't cost much more than daycare, who can learn these easy techniques. Because young kids, especially if they're diagnosed with autism, but even if they're not, need engagement during most of their waking hours, which is about 100 hours a week, which freaks you out, right? Especially in the world of COVID when everything's shut down. Like how could you possibly engage your child 100 hours a week? It's exhausting, and it doesn't matter that the world is shut down and that you're working from home and the child, you know, your child's brain is developing. And if you let your child just sit on an iPad, and, you know, granted, I let Lucas sit on an iPad for way too long too, it's not good. for their developing brain. So that would be my advice. I don't know if you have a follow-up question, Alexandra, or,
No, thank you.
I don't mean to be like
second that.
sitting here pitching my course, but like literally it is the only way I know to help you really. Besides these, the free information is great. And if it can motivate you, to watch a video on denial or watch a video on pronouns, and it will be impossible. People say, well, I can get this information for free because I have hundreds of video blogs and podcasts now. And yeah, you can get it for free, but like it takes time to sift through the information. And that's why I have paid courses, because it's like step by step. And it's the only way to really make the most of your time and money. Because swimming around in free information will just make you dizzy.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So I've watched one of your videos about scripting and echolalia. You talk about replacement behavior, right? But along with that, my child, sometimes her voice kind of like, she kind of like talks like, what do you want? It's kind of different, like not normal especially when she's doing that scripting. Do you have any recommendations to reduce that? Or
Yeah.
It's not disruptive as such, but again, if she's sometimes maybe when she's not engaged fully in an activity, she does that. Or sometimes it could be just during like a virtual learning activity, she could just gaze off and then she starts using that voice. Do you have any suggestions?
So I did a really good video blog called The 3 Buttons, and I'll quickly talk about this, and then this will be our last question because I think this is good for everybody. So this is Dr. Carbone's kind of work. So let me just quickly write down the 3 buttons. So whatever we do with kids or adults, whether that be a table time activity or bath time or wherever, community time, there are 3 buttons they could be pushing. The middle button is the one we want them to push. And that means that the demands are at the right level, the reinforcement is at the right level, the child is having fun working, just like I just talked about Lucas. We measure his affect, his speed. When everything's going well, he's pushing the middle button. He has good affect, good speed, low prompts. But with your daughter, she's having some automatic reinforcement, scripting, stimming. So whether that's in the middle of a task, and the voices, I mean, it could just be her like impersonating the voice or trying to impersonate the voice. I wouldn't worry about like the tone of that or what she's saying. Basically, she is bored. It's kind of like when we doodle, or she's either bored or she doesn't know what you're talking about. So if I were in a lecture and it was in Latin and I don't speak Latin, I'd be doodling a lot. I'd be checking my Facebook. I'd be thinking about other things, and I'd be staring off in space. And with your daughter, she's either overwhelmed and doesn't understand the language. Even if I understood every 5th word or every 10th word, I wouldn't be really with you. So that automatic scripting and stimming, especially if it happens, throughout trying to teach her, you're trying to teach her pronouns or prepositions and she's scripting, but even during the day, like, it's not good for her brain growth to be doing that constantly. It'd be better if she were like reading or doing apps that actually had some problem solving and that sort of thing. So they could be pushing the automatic button over here or the escape button over here. And some kids script and stim to escape and say things like, this is boring, I don't want to do this. I had one kid who during table time, he would say, are you happy? But like 48 times in 10 minutes. And for him, it was kind of like a mixed thing. Like I'd say, touch your nose, and he'd be like, are you happy? And if I didn't repeat, are you happy? Then he might escalate to aggression. Like it can get weird. And so are you happy could start out as a stim, but then be escape. Regardless, you want kids to be pushing the middle button. You want the demands to be right and reinforcement to be right. And so if it's not right, that's when you're going to get a lot of stimming. So watch that 3-button video. That would be another thing to search, Mary Autism 3 buttons. And it's just more of the same. Stimming is not bad. Scripting is not bad. It's time filled, keeping your brain engaged when nothing else is happening. We all stim. Stimming for me is checking Facebook, watching reality TV, reading a book, shooting baskets into a net, a ball into a net and getting 2 points, playing the piano and trying to hit the right notes. That's all stimming. That's all leisure activities. So stimming and scripting isn't bad. But when you're trying to teach prepositions and pronouns and the child's stimming, we've got to disconnect, and we've got her pushing the wrong buttons. I hope you enjoyed listening to those questions and my answers. I thought the questions were just great. I really appreciate you podcast listeners coming on and sharing your questions with me. So keep a lookout in the future. We might hold some more of these sessions where you can ask me your questions directly. And for the show notes for anything we discussed, go to marybarbera.com/109, and I'll talk to you next week.